There is a moment in every royal palace, behind the grand banquet halls, behind the perfectly pressed uniforms, behind the rehearsed smiles for cameras, when the real story begins. Not the story printed in official press releases, not the one delivered with stiff formality at the palace gates. The real one, the one that whispers through corridors and passes between trusted aides in hushed voices. The story that people on the outside can sense but never quite see. This is that story. It begins with a tiara, a dazzling, breathtaking, centuries-old piece of jewelry placed carefully on the head of a princess, and the silent fury that erupted the moment it happened. But the tiara was only the surface. Beneath it ran something far deeper. A power shift that had been building for years inside the British royal family. A tension between two women, one who holds the crown today and one who is destined to hold it tomorrow. And in the middle of it all, a king, a husband, a father, a man with cancer fighting for his health, caught between two worlds he loves, unable to choose. What happened between Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Queen Camilla did not begin overnight. It did not begin with a single incident, a single look, or a single piece of jewelry. It began years ago, long before the cameras turned to capture it, long before the palace aides started whispering. And to understand it fully, you have to go back to the beginning, to the woman Kate was when she first walked into this family, and the woman she has quietly become since then. Catherine Middleton entered the royal family in April 2011, when she married Prince William at Westminster Abbey in front of nearly 2 billion people watching around the world. She was graceful, poised, and deeply in love. She had no royal blood in her veins, but she carried herself with a dignity that silenced every critic who had ever called her ordinary. In those early years, she worked hard to earn her place. She followed protocol carefully. She wore the right clothes to the right events. She supported her husband. She rarely put a foot wrong. Palace insiders described her as eager to please, respectful of tradition, and deeply aware of the hierarchy she had stepped into. Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall at the time and later Queen Consort, had spent decades rebuilding her own public image. Her past was complicated. The British public had never fully forgiven her for the role she played in the breakdown of King Charles and Princess Diana's marriage. She had carried that weight through years of public hostility, cold stares, and silent judgment. But she was patient. She waited. She stood beside Charles with a loyalty that never wavered, and over time, the public began to soften toward her. By the time Charles became king in September 2022, following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, Camilla had earned something she had worked nearly 2 decades to secure, the title of queen. She had worked too hard, waited too long, and sacrificed too much to let that position feel small. And then Kate came back. After a cancer diagnosis in early 2024, a moment that shook the entire country and caused an outpouring of love for the Princess of Wales, Catherine stepped back from public duties for months. The palace closed its doors around her. The public waited and worried. And when she returned, something had changed. The Kate who came back was not the same woman who had stepped away. She was quieter, yes, more thoughtful. But she also carried a new kind of authority. A queenly air, as one palace source later described it. Camilla reportedly disliked being eclipsed, and Kate's growing authority carried a queenly air that was creating tensions behind closed doors. Stylecaster. The public noticed it first. At events, crowds lined the streets for Kate. Cameras found her face instinctively. Headlines gravitated toward her. Another insider noted that Kate's return had been polished, professional, and very queenly, and that it was obvious she was positioning herself for the future, which was making Camilla uneasy. AOL. The first truly visible moment came during the state visit of U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump to the United Kingdom in September 2025. It was a high-stakes event. Cameras from every major news network, dignitaries from across the world, the full weight of British royal ceremony on display. The royal family turned out in full, and Kate arrived looking every inch the future queen she is. The tension at that event was reportedly impossible to ignore, with insiders saying every gesture and every color choice felt like a power move, and that it was Kate who drew the most attention. Stylecaster. Then came the moment that went viral around the world. During a conversation with Melania Trump, a video captured what appeared to be Queen Camilla waving Kate away. A small gesture, brief and subtle, but one that cameras caught and the internet immediately amplified. Ever since that video of Queen Camilla seemingly shooing away Kate Middleton went viral, royal watchers had been on the lookout for more drama between the two senior royals. The palace said nothing. No official comment was made. But behind the scenes, sources told multiple publications that Camilla had been visibly aware of how much attention had shifted away from her that day, and she was not pleased about it. AOL. According to a source who spoke to Radar Online at the time, things were strained backstage, with all eyes on Kate and Camilla clearly aware of that, and furious that the attention had slipped away from her. Stylecaster. It might have faded. These things often do, a moment on camera, a few days of tabloid noise, and then quiet. But the palace tension did not fade. It deepened. Weeks later, at a state banquet held on December 3, 2025, at Windsor Castle welcoming German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, Catherine appeared in an extraordinary piece of royal jewelry. The Princess of Wales chose to wear the Oriental Circlet Tiara, a historic piece commissioned by Prince Albert for Queen Victoria in 1853, adorned with 2,600 diamonds and rubies. It was a breathtaking choice. Photographs of her wearing it spread across every major newspaper in Britain and around the world. She looked, in a word that palace watchers used repeatedly, like a queen. AOL. Inside the palace, the reaction was very different. By all accounts, Camilla was reportedly hopping mad that Kate wore the rarely seen tiara, and she called it another blatant attempt by Kate to make her and King Charles look like also-rans. Sources indicated that Camilla viewed the jewelry choice not as a simple fashion decision, but as a deliberate statement, a signal to the palace, to the public, and to Camilla herself about where power was heading. An insider close to the situation revealed that Camilla was reportedly furious and felt that Kate and William were positioning themselves with a lot of authority, almost as if Buckingham Palace were already theirs, and that Camilla considered this unacceptable and had not hesitated to express her frustration to courtiers and senior royals. Stylecaster. Morning, honey. This was no longer just gossip among palace staff. It was a full-blown power struggle playing out in jewelry boxes and banquet halls and carefully chosen evening gowns. Senior aides who worked closely with both women described their relationship as icy and impossible to ignore. One insider said what was happening felt like the fiercest clash between two senior royal women in years. The Royal Observer. But it wasn't just about a tiara. The deeper story, the one that truly explains why the tension between Kate and Camilla had reached such heights, had everything to do with the future of the monarchy, with King Charles's declining health, and with a question no one inside the palace wanted to ask out loud. What happens when Charles is gone? The tension was said to have been brewing for months as both women took on expanded roles while King Charles continued his cancer treatment. Sources described it as subtle but present, visible in which events they attended, how much coverage each received, and even in the tone of official briefings. The Royal Observer. Camilla's anxiety, according to those close to her, was not without reason. She had watched this movie before, a powerful woman standing close to the throne, slowly being made to feel like an afterthought as the next generation stepped forward. Having spent decades reshaping her public image after years of scrutiny, she had reportedly grown wary of being overshadowed just as she had finally secured her position beside the king. The Royal Observer. And then there was the matter of Harry. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, had been estranged from the royal family for years. His relationship with his father King Charles had been shattered by the publication of his memoir Spare, in which he made devastating claims about palace life, claims that included highly damaging portrayals of Camilla. Harry had called her a wicked stepmother and alleged that she had been providing information to the press to rebuild her own image, a claim Camilla and the palace firmly denied. The wounds from that book ran deep, especially for Camilla. In September 2025, when Harry finally reunited with Charles for a private tea at Clarence House, the first time the two had met in over 18 months, it was reportedly Kate who had taken steps to make that reunion happen, working quietly behind the scenes to mend the rift between Harry and his father. The Mirror. Camilla found this unforgivable. Insiders reported that Camilla fully supported William's zero-tolerance policy of no forgiveness toward Harry, and would have preferred Charles to do the same. She was allegedly under the impression that had it not been for Kate's efforts, Harry would have had no way back into the royal fold. The Mirror. Sources reported that Camilla told Kate flat out during a heated exchange at the palace that Kate was being naive and reckless, and disloyal toward her husband by refusing to respect the family's wishes about Harry. Reality T. Kate, for her part, did not back down. Palace insiders said the Princess of Wales had been biting her tongue over Camilla's behavior, but that the Harry situation was making things 100 times more tense. Kate's position was clear to those close to her. She was not interested in rivalries, but she was also not willing to be diminished. She had watched her husband's family fracture over years of silence and stubbornness, and she believed that healing, even difficult, complicated healing, was better than permanent estrangement. Reality T. The disagreement was no longer quiet. The tension between Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Queen Camilla had reportedly gone from frosty to almost unworkable, with multiple briefed sources saying the two senior royals could barely tolerate sharing the same space. Careful choreography was now needed to keep them from being in the same room for longer than absolutely necessary. AOL. And throughout all of this, the viral video, the tiara, the Harry reconciliation, the icy exchanges behind palace doors. King Charles sat at the center of everything, caught between his wife and his daughter-in-law, managing his cancer treatment and trying to hold his family together. Reports indicated that Charles had made one request of his son, to leave his wife alone. Charles was reportedly concerned about the widening rift and the toll it was taking on Camilla, who had been his steadfast companion through decades of difficulty. Stallcaster. But the situation was more complicated than any simple request could resolve. William had been urging his father to ease off on his public duties and genuinely take a step back to focus on his health. But each time he brought it up, it reportedly triggered tension because Camilla was seen as encouraging Charles to keep pushing forward. It was becoming a recurring point of conflict between them. Stallcaster. There were reports that Charles was quietly preparing something else too, an arrangement for what would happen after he was gone. Sources claimed that Charles had issued directives about Camilla's future standing within the monarchy, reportedly telling William that if he agreed to protect Camilla's position and perks within the palace even after he became king, Charles would support William in decisions about the broader family. AOL. It was a deathbed understanding, the kind that only happens in families where love and power are deeply intertwined and impossible to separate. William, according to sources, agreed to the terms, but those close to him noted the agreement came with limits. A royal insider suggested that when William and Kate eventually take the throne, they may reevaluate Camilla's role within the working royal family, and that there were residual feelings about Camilla's history that had never fully gone away. She knows. By the start of 2026, the situation inside the palace had not improved. Insiders were telling multiple publications that open warfare had erupted between Kate and Camilla, and that palace aides said it had become almost impossible to contain. The latest flare-up came after months of murmurs about a breakdown in their relations. AOL. Yet in public, both women continued to appear at events together. They smiled at cameras. They wore their finest gowns and their most carefully chosen tiaras. They stood beside their husbands at state dinners and national memorials. The performance of royal unity continued, as it always does, because the institution of the monarchy demands it, and because both women understand, perhaps better than anyone, that the show must go on. But those watching closely, the royal correspondents, the palace insiders, the biographers who have spent careers studying this family, could see it, in the angles of their bodies at public events, in who stood closest to the king, in which tiara was chosen for which evening, in the carefully worded briefings that emerged from different wings of the palace. The battle for the future of the monarchy was being fought in the most British way possible, quietly, elegantly, and with tremendous personal cost to everyone involved. As one insider put it bluntly, Camilla can gripe all she wants, but there is no changing the reality that Kate will be queen before too long. When that happens, Camilla will effectively be at Kate's mercy in terms of her perks and influence within the firm. Stallcaster. That is the truth that sits at the heart of all of this. Not a secret ring, not a single dramatic confrontation in a palace corridor. But something far more real and far more complicated, two extraordinary women navigating the most unusual of circumstances. A queen who knows her time is finite. A future queen who is patiently, gracefully, and inexorably stepping forward. A king who loves them both and is running out of time to hold everything together. Catherine, Princess of Wales, did not set out to make Camilla feel small. She set out to do her duty, the duty she signed up for, the duty she nearly lost her life preparing for, the duty she returned to after illness with a quiet determination that moved an entire nation. And Camilla, Queen of the United Kingdom, is not a villain in this story. She is a woman who fought for decades to earn her place and is not yet ready to let it go. What King Charles's reaction to all of it has truly been, beyond the reported private requests for peace, beyond the whispered directives about Camilla's future, may never be fully known. He's a man who has always guarded his private feelings closely. What is known is that he has asked the people he loves most to find a way to be kind to each other. And what is also known is that inside the palace, that request has proven very, very hard to honor. The tiara sits back in its case now. The state banquet photographs have been filed away. The viral video has been watched millions of times and debated in living rooms across the world. And inside the walls of Windsor Castle, two women who will forever be linked by the same family, the same crown, and the same complicated history, continue to navigate a relationship that has never been simple and shows no signs of becoming so anytime soon. The palace moves forward. It always does. But the story, the real one, whispered in corridors and passed between trusted sources, that one is far from over.